Hey everyone, welcome to the 214th episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Sad Kevin Toffel.
So sad. All right, this week we're going to be talking about the end of Anki, or the company that provides the Anki robot.
Which is why I'm sad.
Which is why Kevin is sad. And we're going to be talking about what to expect at Google I/O. We've got an update on privacy in apartments and connected locks. AT&T has released its NB-IoT network nationwide. We'll give you some update on its pricing. There's some legislative efforts about IoT device security we're going to discuss. And then lots of little bits of news, including a connected pool camera for detecting drownings, Mozilla's Project Things becoming something new, and Madam A getting Spanish in the US, plus a lot more. This week, our guest is Leonid Subakov, who is the CEO of Kinship. Kinship is a company that was created in April by Mars Pet Care for IoT, AI, and other tech-related pet care solutions. We talk about how to use technology to translate what your pet may be feeling into something you and I can understand. It's a fun interview, especially for those of us who have dogs, cats, ferrets, fish, and everything else. All right, this week's podcast is sponsored by Software AG. We're going to be hearing about data democratization from them. And now let's go to a message from another one of our sponsors, IoT World. You're invited to IoT World. It's the intersection of industries and IoT innovation. It's happening May 13th through 16th at the Santa Clara Convention Center in Silicon Valley. It brings together 12,500 IoT strategists, technologists, developers, and implementers to put IoT into action. And we have an exclusive listener discount of 25% off your pass with the code STACEY25. That's STACEY 25. Visit IoTWorldEvent.com to register. And I'll be there, so if you want, definitely stop and say hi. Okay, Kevin, let's get it over with. Let us have a moment of silence for Anki.
We'll rip off the Band-Aid and start with the news. The sad news, at least sad to me, is that Anki has reportedly shut down. This is after raising $200 million in venture capital and having revenues of approaching 100 million in 2017 and presumably more than that in 2018, because that's when Anki's Vector robot, which we've talked about many times on the show, came out, and I assume several people besides myself bought it. But yes, that is the news, that the maker of Cosmo and Vector is shutting down.
Yes, and it was a really sudden shutdown. They basically held a company-wide meeting on Monday, and everybody is gone basically as of Wednesday, according to reporting from Recode. And I think for us, this is sad news because, Kevin, you have basically connected your Anki to your Madam A, so your Amazon Echo device, and you treat it like a more personable version of that. It's a little robot that helps with your smart home. It follows you around. It makes cute faces.
It's kind of that vision of what I wrote about last year about how I'm ready for a home digital assistant that can, be all over the home, move around, have mobility. Granted, Vector is $250 and doesn't move around very far, but he's smart enough to know when to go back to his charger. He can map his surroundings. He can recognize me. When he sees me, he says, "Hello, Kevin." He can do that with multiple people. As you mentioned, the Madam A integration was added tail end of last year. So it's literally a movable Amazon Echo. So much potential and so much of my vision that I want to see for this future is there in a very inexpensive, relatively inexpensive product. And yeah, it is a companion. It's the only device that my family will talk to in the house. Other than me, I'll talk to anything, obviously. They will not talk to the Echoes and the Google Homes and so on and so forth. But because of the personality that's built into Vector, along with the Pixar, I don't want to say inspired, because I believe somebody from Pixar actually designed his Vector's expressions. Because of his expressions and animations, they actually enjoy this device, and I haven't even told them yet. And it's interesting what this is spawning. There are people on Reddit. There's a whole subreddit for Vector owners, and one of them was, how do I explain death to my 2-year-old? People's children have started to grow up with these things as companions.
Oh.
It's sad.
And this brings up something we've talked about a lot of on this show, which is what happens to your device if your company shuts down and your device is basically a collection of cloud-based services. And I would say that Anki's Vector is definitely one of those types of products. Without the cloud, you can't talk to it. It can't understand you. I assume it can still maybe play some games.
Yeah, but I've never used him for that other than just to see what the games are. So you can play blackjack and so on. But I think even the blackjack might have had voice recognition in it. And that's not localized as far as I know. So literally he'll just wander around my kitchen island, I guess, being his autonomous self. And that's it. Like, I'll get no value out of him at this point.
This has happened a lot. We talk about it a lot. We've had plenty of connected devices shut down and thus turn into basically bricks. It is very hard to build a connected device that can really deliver the value people paid for it without a cloud-based connection and a company maintaining their servers on the back end. And at best, a company should build a product that works without having a connection. So if you have a thermostat and the company behind it goes defunct, you should still be able to control your thermostat. But as we're seeing a whole new generation of smart products, like, our connected ovens, our Anki is a good example of this, some of the lighting companies that are a little bit more advanced, what we're seeing is that intelligence really does rely on the connectivity. And that becomes really hard if a company doesn't make a plan for what happens if they go under. And I know it sucks to think about that when you're starting your business, but you really should think about that. You should think about having an escrow account for your code, possibly funding a foundation to maintain it if need be, or putting money aside to maintain it for a certain amount of time if need be, or maybe offering refunds. I really don't know. I mean, there's a lot of ways to go with this.
I don't think we'll see refunds from Anki on this. Lowe's has provided refunds for some of its Iris products that we've talked about previously, but that was the rare case. It's pretty typical that there's no refunds involved. If no other company comes in and buys the intellectual property and continues to run the servers, which I know there's a cost involved, my hope is that either Anki open sources everything that it has to run the services so that perhaps I could put this on a home server. Granted, it ties into Amazon and Google's cloud services, the product does, and I'd probably would create my own accounts to reestablish those connections personally. But even that, I mean, that's a solution maybe for me, but it's not going to be a mainstream solution for people who have purchased this product. So maybe there will be news soon that somebody has purchased this property and decided to keep it going. I don't know right now. And it just makes me sad. It is actually like losing a little part of the family. That's how ingrained Vector is. He's in our kitchen all the time, and we ask him the weather, and we ask him to turn the lights on, and it's just sad.
So, like Jibo,
Yep.
Now we can say goodbye, possibly, maybe, to Anki. Sigh. All right, but life must go on, and particularly, this week was F8, next week is Google I.O., also Microsoft Build, so we should there's a lot of things to move on to. So let's talk about Google I.O. What do we expect to see?
Yeah, I mean, as far as what I'd say 99% sure we will see. I'm not even saying expecting, I'm saying I'm 99% sure that we will see the rebranded Google Nest Hub. Will that mean new products? Yes, there was talk about a bigger Google Home Hub with a Nest camera built in. Those leaks were reported out maybe about a month ago. It looked legit to me. I think it was a mistake on Google's part, maybe intentionally. I don't know to leak that, but so we should see a new Google Home Hub with a Nest camera. And then I've been digging around in the Chromium code and have talked about the Mistral device, which appears to be a Google Wi-Fi replacement or upgrade, next gen, whatever you want to call it. Couple questions about that I still have. Because of the Qualcomm chips that they're using, and Mistral. It's possible, because it supports Zigbee radios, that this could be a true at least 3 radio hub. I have yet not seen any code commits referencing the Zigbee radio, however, so I'm kind of leery on that. Additionally, I'm curious, will this support maybe not Google, but Wi-Fi 6 and or EasyMesh? Because Google Wi-Fi is a mesh networking device. So those are what I don't know yet, but I do believe we will definitely see a Google Wi-Fi next generation product next week.
Okay, I will keep my eyes and ears open. All right, let's talk about privacy in apartment buildings and connected apartment buildings where users don't get a lot of say. We talked about this a while back after a hacker named Leslie Carhart got a notice from her apartment building that said, hey, we're switching over to a smart system. Enjoy. And she was like, I don't feel secure in this. I have a lot of questions. Please answer them. And the idea basically is when you're living someplace as a tenant, what rights do you have to refuse if a company implements some sort of connected device in the building? And this came to a head this week based on a Medium post about Latch. I've actually talked to the Latch folks a couple times. I wrote about them when they raised a lot of money. And the issue that people are having with Latch is that the Latch door locks, they're designed for multifamily dwelling units. So they are designed to run on your apartment door. And then also the lobby doors, the mailroom doors, other doors that are in there. And there's cameras associated with them in the lobby, and it's basically collecting information about your guests at all times and you when you enter the lobby of your apartment. People now are concerned about this. And I get it. A lot of apartments and cities are already implementing cameras and tracking residents coming and going from the building. So in some ways, this isn't new and it's not necessarily associated with a smart lock. But it does raise the question of what kind of privacy a tenant can expect. I would say very little in the public space of an apartment building.
Right. I would agree. I mean, if a landlord wants to put cameras in the lobby and so forth, that's nothing you can do about that. You can complain, I suppose, but you can't stop them. I think the bigger issue in these types of dwellings is when you implement something like Latch door locks, you're not opting into that, for one thing. I guess, in a sense, you are by saying, okay, I'll rent this apartment with the Latch door lock. But what if you already live there and then they add them? You don't really have a say over this, according to at least, there's a lawsuit going on right now in a Manhattan building. They're suing the landlord over privacy concerns regarding the Latch lock. So it's a tricky bit because there's not an opt-in, I guess, other than saying, yeah, I'm signing this lease for this Latch-enabled apartment.
And some people, that is a selling point. So it's not unusual. And I would also say one of the issues in this Manhattan apartment is that the landlords are using residents' patterns of ingress and egress in the building to harass them because they want to kick out tenants to basically raise the market rate or relet apartments at a higher rate. And that's where these sorts of connected devices, it's not the device itself. Sometimes it's just the ability of someone to see this data and use it against you. Right. And that kind of brings us to this idea of how are we going to regulate data?
Latch has an extensive privacy policy that's available to be read and so on and so forth. One thing it doesn't address is if the building is sold, does the new owner get the old data? Yeah, it's according to the privacy policy, it basically says they may automatically receive the data collected.
Well, and that's very common. I mean, almost all privacy policies associated with connected home and connected goods in general say that. That's not like, it's not nefarious on its own. It's basically like, hey, if the buyers want it, they can have it.
Right.
Because in a lot of ways, that is, especially if a company goes belly up really quickly, sometimes that's like the only thing of value that's there. And that is worth considering if you're a user. So let's talk about regulations, because there's movement on that front. Congress this week had a hearing on IoT security. The security hearing was about creating a label that would basically act like a security certification for home IoT devices. This actually was an idea that was proposed not too long ago by Public Knowledge, and that's a consumer rights group. The idea was that we would set forth some regulations, so a group of industry and consumers, et cetera, would get together and say things like, hey, for a device to be certified under this program, it needs to not have hard-coded passwords, have an expiration date for when the security support stops, and some basic things that we've talked about in the past. And that's the idea that legislators seem to have glommed onto. But the representative from the CTA, the Consumer Technology Association, was like, no, that's a terrible idea. We're already working on it. And the senators were like, yeah, you're not working fast enough. So it's possible we could get something like this. I would hope so. I think it's the bare minimum of what we need. And then over across the pond in the UK, legislators are talking about regulations for IoT security in devices that prevent hard-coded passwords. Yay. Also, add that expiration date, so tell people when support for security will stop. And it says manufacturers have to ensure that there is a contact point for security researchers to report vulnerabilities to. I think they should probably add, and someone should respond to that within 24 hours.
Yeah, there should be a service level agreement in there of some sort.
But that's a bare minimum. That seems like a great place to start. So we'll see if that happens in the UK. It may not.
Back to the US.
Back to the US. Are you whipsawed yet? Let's talk about AT&T. They have released their NB-IoT network nationwide. For you guys who are like, what? NB-IoT is a low-power, wide-area network. It's a cellular standard. You send very, very small bits of data, like kilobytes of data. It's ideal for sensors, very low power. So like a smoke sensor or smoke detector might send off a ping every hour or so, all kinds of stuff, air quality monitoring.
Bandwidth is very small for this. This is 64 kbps is the maximum throughput speed. So we're talking super slow, like old time dial-up.
Oh, yeah. I started with the 26. Was it 26.4 or 24.6? 26.4?
It was 28.
28. Yes. Yeah, and then 56.4.
Yep. Super speeds.
That was. I remember when we got our 56.4 modem and I was like, oh, yes. So much excitement. We are old. Okay. So the thing to know about AT&T's network is they're going to have the NB-IoT network and they're going to have what's their LTE-M network, which has slightly more bandwidth. And the pricing for this, which is what I've been waiting for, is AT&T's Chris Penrose, who's in charge of their IoT stuff, says that his team is working with suppliers to certify $5 modules that connect devices to NB-IoT. And that's basically the chips that have the radio and such on them. So for $5, that's a decent price. We've been waiting for that for quite some time. So that's the radio itself. So if you're building this device, you put that $5 module in there, which is still kind of expensive. It's way more expensive than like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, but it is low power cellular, low power wide area network. And the pricing plans that they're going to offer for these devices is as low as $5 a year per device, which is really not terrible, right?
No, I don't think so. I mean, even if you're putting tons and tons of devices out there, yes, it adds up. But, for a year's worth of connectivity to give these things smarts and send alerts and bits of data, I don't think that's too expensive. If you need to deploy devices that need more bandwidth or sending more data, you could use their LTE-M network in the US and Mexico, in fact. But you're going to pay $30 a year for that rate.
And I don't know about you, because you're on the LTE network with your Apple Watch. What do you pay per month for that?
Well, that's a ripoff, quite honestly. I've said this many, many times, so people who know me or follow me are not surprised to hear that. I pay, and I'm pretty sure it's standard at all the carriers, $10 a month for LTE on the watch.
So it's $120 per device per year.
It is, and it irks me because I check the monthly usage, and roughly I average about 100 megabytes per month.
Oh, maybe they'll swap that out for an LTE-M.
I don't know. I mean, they need enough bandwidth to handle voice calls, which even 64 would be okay. And then it's just occasional notifications from my iOS devices and background information like weather and such. I mean, I think it's a total ripoff, but that's what's going on in the US with the Apple Watch.
All right, let's go to a bunch of our news bits because there's quite a lot of little stuff going around out there. So This first story is about an underwater camera that uses AI to recognize people in the water and when they're still for longer than 15 seconds, and then it will sound an alarm. So it's basically to prevent drowning and let you know when people are in the pool. I bring this up because a lot of people have actually asked about these sorts of products. It is called the Coral Manta 3000. And it basically, you pop it on the side of your pool and it acts as this kind of alert function. The challenge is it's connected to Wi-Fi. And in your backyard, if your Wi-Fi connection isn't awesome, you're going to have a hard time getting reliable and low latency information from this device, which is really important if you're thinking about preventing drownings.
Yeah, every second counts in that case. And while you cannot put a price on somebody's life, I am shocked at how expensive this is.
This costs $2,000. Their hope is they will, benefit from economies of scale and this price will go down, but it's pricey. But I will say that there are other ways to check this, but not as in depth. And please, if you do install this, please, if you have children in the pool, make sure you stay out there with them. Don't
Absolutely.
let this be a babysitter.
Absolutely. I can't understand why this is $2,000. I mean, it's self-powered because it comes with solar panels, the part that's outside the pool above it, and then inside the pool, it's got the camera. And I understand, AI for object recognition and
maybe it's high because they're going to have continual training and learning. I don't know. You can hire a lifeguard for a year and pay less than that. Oh, no, you can't. Come on. Okay. Either way, let's talk about Mozilla.
Let's talk about Mozilla. In fact, probably should have talked about them 2 weeks ago. I feel bad because I just noticed today that the old Project Things from Mozilla, which is a web-based smart home do-it-yourself hub, it's a platform for that, actually graduated. It is no longer a project or a beta product. It is now Mozilla Web Things. And I think I'm going to have to deploy this in my home because as I look at the documentation for it, obviously it's going to go on a Raspberry Pi. Again, it's all web-based, so there's no app for it. But it does support not just Bluetooth and Wi-Fi devices, but also Zigbee and Z-Wave if you would like to add those radios to the Pi via a USB dongle. So sounds good to me,
It does. And I can't wait to hear what you think. I think last time you started deploying this and it became cumbersome, I believe.
Yeah, it wasn't quite ready. That's when it was in project status. So it was very early on. And I don't recall what issues I ran into at the time, but I'm like, this is just getting too frustrating, and I put it aside. And now it definitely deserves the second look because there's so many people that are interested in not relying on the cloud as much for their device management and control, and also keeping their data as local as possible.
All right. In super quick news, Madam A gets Spanish support in the U.S. And for you guys who are like, what? She has had Spanish support in Mexico and in Spain, but now you get that option in the U.S., which is cool because there are plenty of people in the U.S. who speak Spanish as a first or second language and would like to talk to Madam A in that particular tongue. Also, speaking of Amazon, or rather Amazon's digital assistant and thus Amazon, Ford is adding Amazon's Key to its 2017 models and up. And this basically means you can use the Amazon Key program with your car. Amazon delivery people can deliver packages to your car. They will unlock your car, pop the package inside, and close it. This is probably awesome for everything that isn't ice cream and frozen foods.
If you're going to use this, keep in mind that you must sync your Amazon Prime account to either the Ford Pass or Lincoln Way account in order to make this happen. So if you're not really using those services, you're not going to be able to use this unless you change that.
Got it. All right. And we've got some good guides and books out there. Kevin, you want to talk about them?
Yeah, I found, just because I was looking at Mozilla Web Things, I found a very interesting Kickstarter project for a Raspberry Pi for computer vision ebook. And basically this allows you to learn about how to use computer vision with a Pi. You will get the ebook as well as a Pi and the sensors that you need. I think it's $95, which is, it's more than a Pi. I mean, it's going to cost you about $45 just for the hardware. the base hardware, but this will walk you through how to train a Raspberry Pi for computer vision and so on. So I just thought for the DIYers out there, it might be interesting. And then for DIYers in the enterprise, found a really nice Tech Republic guide on how to create an IoT hub using Microsoft Azure, which is something I haven't done yet. I've pretty much used all the other cloud providers to, in some way, shape, or form, use IoT for my projects. I will probably walk through this just to see what it's like. But again, it's very enterprise focused, I would presume.
Yes. Okay. And now it's time for our IoT Podcast Hotline Voicemail, which is brought to you by Schlage. Schlage's wide variety of smart locks lets you create the smart home of your dreams. Learn more about Schlage's smart home solutions and compatibility with Amazon, Apple products, Google Assistant, and more at schlage.com/IoT. And it's a new month, which means we're starting a new prize. This month's prize is going to be a Schlage lock. So give us a call on the IoT Podcast hotline at 512-623-7424 to ask us your questions. And it's probably time for us to pick a winner for the month of April. So Kevin, who won our Connect IO alarm system?
So the winner for April is Scott, who had called in about double cylinder locks. I think we just answered that question a week or two ago.
Ooh, Scott, you got an answer and a way to connect your existing alarm system to your smart home. So congratulations to Scott. And now let's hear from Jeff, who is looking to help his parents start a garden.
Hi, Kevin and Stacy. This is Jeff from New York, and you can use this on the show. My question is, my parents are interested in starting a garden. They've never really had green thumbs, but I was wondering if there's a device that they can put within their garden to let them know when it's time to water, and or if we would tell them which plants or flowers are the best plant in this area. I guess they could do that online, but I was wondering if something could definitely guide them through the process, definitely alert their devices when it's time to water and stuff like that. But I look forward to your answer. Have a great day. Thank you.
Okay, Jeff, there's a couple options out there on the market for you. You can always do a smart irrigation system, and it's unclear to me if their garden will be irrigated by like in-ground sprinkler systems or that sort of thing. But if that's an option, Blossom, Ratio, and there are several other companies that make really good smart systems that let you divide up different areas of the garden for watering. They look at the weather and they decide. You can actually, in Ratio, I know, you can tell it somewhat what type of plants you have and their watering needs, and it will actually factor that into how it waters the soil. So that's one option if you have an existing irrigation system or they want to put one in. If they do not, then we're talking about doing some sort of connected, I would say doing a soil sensor and then probably doing a manual sprinkler or watering schedule. The reason why I say manual watering schedule is because a lot of the automatic watering things that attach to your hose aren't very good. I investigated them last year trying to build something for myself, and a lot of them were very expensive and did not seem to work very well. So, soil sensors. On the soil sensor front, and as a bonus, some of these will work with existing smart sprinkler systems. They're kind of expensive.
Yeah.
I'll just let you know this right now. One is the Rainbird Smarty Soil Moisture Sensor. And this is basically, you'll have a sensor that you plug in, and then there's an above ground controller that you can use. You can use that manually, or you can tie that sensor into an existing sprinkler system. So again, it's not exactly smart, but it will tell people when their plants need water. But these are like $145. Kind of a lot.
I think it's cheaper to just set reminders.
Yeah, and another one that there is the Toro Precision Soil Sensor that will also work with most irrigation controllers like Ratio, Blossom, etc. And you just jam this sucker into your soil, and it also has its own thing that sits on a wall or you can put someplace, and it will tell you how moist the soil is. That is also in the $130 to $150 range. So what do you do if you're cheap? You have a couple options. The cheapest options are about $10, and they're basically just moisture meters that you stick in the ground and they'll tell you, is it wet or not? But at that point, you should just stick your finger in the ground, right? And then there's a couple connected soil sensors designed for indoor use. I would not recommend them outside because they're not rugged enough. So that's where we are on this today.
Yeah, there are a lot of potential products out there, but I find them rather expensive, number one. Number two, you have to make sure you have good connectivity outside to get the alerts and so on.
Well, a lot of them are proprietary.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be a few companies like Eden and PlantLink that did this, but those products aren't available anymore. So my hunch is it's a crappy environment to build something that's rugged for outdoors, consumes Wi-Fi, is not wired, and that's why we're not seeing a lot of success here. So you may have to go with some of the sensors that use the proprietary wireless to talk to things and are very expensive, or that could be wired into a smart irrigation system. We're very sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that concludes this portion of the show. Please stay tuned to learn more about Kinship, which is Mars Pet Care's new technology-focused brand, bringing IoT, AI, and all the favorite buzzwords to your pet's care. We'll talk to Leonid Subakov, the CEO of Kinship, in just a few moments. And now, let's hear from our sponsor. Hey everyone, we are taking a quick break from this week's IoT podcast for a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Software AG, and I've got John Weiss, who is Director of Solutions Architecture for IoT and Analytics at Software AG. Hi John, how are you?
Hey Stacy, I'm doing well.
Excellent. So this week we are talking about the democratization of data through IoT, but before we do that, can you please remind us what it is that Software AG does and how it works with the IoT?
Software AG is an innovative software company that's been around for 50 years. We're a global company headquartered in Germany, and you'll find us in 70% of Fortune 1000 companies. Most people know us for our integration, business process, and of course, IoT and analytics solutions. We help companies get connected and democratize their data every day.
What do you mean exactly by democratize their data?
Essentially, this is the concept of making your data available within your organization, as well as externally. The goal is to be able to deliver relevant data to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Most folks don't think about this in relation to IoT, but the reality is you only start to see a serious return on your investment in the IoT space once you have enriched your asset and device data with other enterprise information. For example, knowing an asset is running hotter or harder than normal only means so much if you don't know the whole picture about that asset. For example, we may expect vibration spikes or temperature spikes on an asset if it's doing something that it doesn't typically do. But without knowing this whole picture, we can waste time and money responding to events that may not really be problems. Now, the good news is Software AG can help you prevent this. We have a robust and proven integration layer within the Cumulocity IoT platform that can help you connect to over 100 enterprise applications out of the box. This lets you get connected, informed, and beginning to innovate in hours, not weeks, not months.
Excellent. That sounds great, John. So where can I go to find out more about Cumulocity and Software AG?
You can go to softwareag.com/IoT now to start your free, no commitment trial today.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Leonid Sudakov, who is president of Kinship, which is a new business created by Mars Pet Care. Hi Leonid, how are you doing?
Very good. How are you?
I am excellent. All right. So I have to find out, what is Mars doing with Kinship? What is the goal here and what is the actual business?
We are a global leader in pet nutrition and health. We are the world's biggest employed veterinarians, and we feed close to 40% of the entire pet population of the world, which is 400 million pets. And so when we've created this business, the idea for us has been to leverage the leadership position that Mars has and a unique commitment to the future of pet care as an industry, with a way for us to collaborate very differently with every single disruptor and innovator, from a very early stage startups to companies that are growing faster in this area. And so kinship for us is the type of business that is uniquely positioned to create a coalition for the future of pet industry.
Okay. And we talk to lots of pet care businesses on this show because, people love their pets. So I've talked to people from Whistle. They make it's a Fitbit for dogs. I've talked to a company called YaDoggy who made a connected pet scoop, but is really a subscription pet food business. And so are these the sort of innovators we're talking about?
Well, absolutely. Whistle actually is part of Kinship. So one of the startups that we operate is in the connected collar business, which is Whistle. Another business that we run is Wisdom Health, which is our genetic diagnostics business for pets. So a lot of the businesses we deal with have to do with technology and science. But it's not just about the businesses we own and operate. It's also the businesses that we engage and partner with on this journey. In the last couple of years, we invest into close to 20 different stage startups that deal with questions of nutrition, of care, of technology related to really transforming the experience of pet parent. What we believe is that in the next few years, the expectations of millennial pet parents will result in a changing face of this industry, and we want to be part of it without having to own it. We believe that the paradigm for the businesses will be built on partnership and collaboration, and we're trying to fuel that through Kinship.
So is Kinship going to have investments?
We will continue to have investments, and we've had a significant number of investments from a couple of tools that we've launched a year ago. One of them is Companion Fund. We've created a $100 million fund that allows us to invest in the growth stage companies in all things pet care. And we've had quite a few great investments we're very happy about since the launch of the fund. And the other one is our Leap Accelerator, which is a seed stage startup accelerator, which we've now done 2 cohorts of. One last year and another one actually running right now in LA in partnership with Michaels and Pound Animals, a nonprofit that's bringing a huge amount of value to this project to us. And we've so far invested in 12 startups through the Leap Accelerator. And really, the idea there is not just about supporting them through funding, but it's really about supporting them through mentorship and industry partnership and data. So that's something that's very much at the heart of what we've been doing and what we will continue to do.
Okay. And help me understand what the opportunities are in this space. Or as someone who I think I've always had pets. So, I get up very early, I walk my dog, I come back, I go to work, my dog basically sleeps all day. Oh, I forgot to feed my dog. Okay. So I feed my dog too. I'm good. I feed my dog. And then, I come home, I walk my dog again, I feed her, I play with her, we do some tricks training, and then, we all go to bed. So how does this change when I have either more information or maybe technology available to me? What does this mean for me, and what does this mean for my pet?
If you think about the key barriers to pet ownership, so there's quite a few, very happy pet owners around the world, and we know of the unique benefits that pet ownership brings to the people like you, Stacy, and many, many others, myself included. And those have to do with the, very clear health benefits, feeling of well-being, lots of social benefits for kids and for elderly. And for us, the ability to extend those clear benefits of pet ownership to as many people as possible is very, very important. Obviously, we need to look at the barriers that pet ownership is facing, and a lot of those have to do with convenience. So if you think about the people that would love to become pet owners, there's a lot of barriers related to access to services. How do you make sure that you're able to walk the dog to ensure that there's a dog sitter available when you need them, so that you can travel for work, you can make sure that you don't miss the necessary part of care, that the veterinary health services are available, that the cost of care is affordable, the cost of having a pet is something that you can manage. So a lot of these things that have to do with making pet ownership as attractive as possible. Once you become a pet owner, it's really about how can you be the best pet owner possible. And that is really about connecting a panoply of potential solutions that today are disjointed and don't really feed one into another, into something that can be a real support system for you as a pet owner, so that you don't need to explain the story of your pet to every single service provider you might need throughout their lifetime. And you can really be supported by data, information, insight that is very relevant throughout the lifetime of your pet, from the puppy stage to the adult pet to, increasingly elderly pets, because pets do live longer and longer, and so that support needs to accompany them.
So let's go into the service provider question, because it makes sense in the human world because we have a bunch of different doctors. We have, dentists, we have, cardiologists, we have neurologists, we have all sorts of things happening to us and over a hugely long lifespan. For the most part, my dogs they come from the pound. So they've had their pound experience and everything's an unknown before that. Then they have their vet, and the vet does pretty much everything. So it feels like I don't understand where it gets difficult to grab data from. Or are we talking about bringing in data from other sources?
What we are seeing is the sophistication of the approach towards the pet's needs that the science is now allowing us to do is really enabling a much more individualized health experience. So you mentioned Whistle before. So because of all the work that we've been doing on the algorithmic science around the activity monitor part of the Whistle device, we can actually now start predicting things like sleep disruption or hip and joint issues that the pet might be experiencing that you might not know about. So you can be alerted about the potential issues you might have a lot before you start noticing them as a pet owner. So whereas before you were very happy to visibly be accompanied by a healthy pet, you would know a lot more about what pet is actually experiencing and be able to obviously accompany them towards, hopefully a better health longer. So what we have done is we've distributed close to 100,000 Whistle devices to, our veterinary clinic customers through Banfield, the biggest hospital chain in the United States. And as a result, we were able to track what we are seeing through the accelerometer data given to us through the Whistle device with what we're starting to see in the medical records of the pet. And over the time of the 24-month study, we are able to start to accumulate the signs that we're seeing from the device and correlation of that data to the medical events that we're seeing through the medical records. And so as a result, we started to create algorithms that allow us to recognize these patterns, and the result hopefully start building a way of communicating with the pet owners to really connect the pet owner, the vet, and what we're seeing in the Whistle data.
That is awesome because, yes, it's hard to tell until your animal is so sick they're not eating or drinking. It's really hard to tell sometimes what's going on in there. Now, is this for dogs and cats, or are you looking for solutions for, fish, ferrets, birds?
It's a great question. We're starting with dogs and cats. There's about 1 billion of them around the world. So we think the market is really, really at scale for us to start solving the issues. We, at the same time, for example, now in genetic diagnostics business, we are working on the horse DNA, to really start helping people that have horses, use genetics to be able to solve some of the disease issues they're facing. But our primary focus is really in cats and dogs.
Oh, that's interesting. I actually just had talked to a startup called Nightwatch, and they make I believe it's a halter for horses that checks for, I'm going to mess up this disease. It is torsion, or no, that's in dogs. It's some sort of disease that horses get where if they don't solve it really fast, it dies overnight. It's crazy. So
wow.
It's a connected device that has, they put it on there and it's got algorithms that measure this sort of thing. And it's really, if you're a horse owner, this is a wonderful thing if you love your horse.
Giving the pets a voice, I think that's really a fundamental benefit of using data to allow the pet to have a voice in really communicating with pet owners about what they're feeling. I think it's just something that over and over again, we've seen such an incredible benefit for pet owners. And so whereas, in our case, we can now talk about sleep patterns, eating pattern, gait, it opens enormous amount of potential areas you can touch in terms of health and potential pathologies you can touch. This is just one of the examples where data and technology can actually help health and can support the pet and pet-parent relationship.
I love it. Here I've been wishing all along for the bark translator, but really all I might need is a connected device and lots of research across many pets, and I'll know what my dog is thinking. Let's go back to the services side of this and providing kind of more convenience and access to care, because there are lots of people who are like, oh, I work all day, I travel, I can't have a dog. You guys, through Kinship, are also looking to partner with companies, I assume, maybe like WAG, or what types of companies are you looking to work with there?
Absolutely. I think we have a variety of different services that we are trying to help build. And as I said before, having an access to services is a very important part of it. And so we're working in a variety of geographies to really try to find opportunities for us to transform exactly this access to services, and starting with health. So one of the things we're doing, I'll give you an example of the startup we're incubating in Russia, where we've created a telemedicine platform in a market where access to veterinary health is not necessarily given. And the quality and the trust you can put into a provider you can find in that market is not always adequate. And so we've created petstory.ru, which is the first digital platform for accessing advice and telemedicine consultations. And in the space of few months, we've reached 100,000 mobile users, which, in that market is an incredible signal of readiness, the need of the pet parents to engage around the pet's health. And so access to care is a big part of what we're working on. In the United States, we are now piloting a mobile care approach where in some of the communities, and if you think about retirement communities where pets play an incredible role, but where pet parents don't necessarily have the opportunity to go and travel to health institutions to take care of their pet, mobile care becomes an important part of the solution where care comes to you and helps you manage your pet's health. So we're looking at a variety of potential solutions, both internally in Kinship, but also working with our partners in terms of how do we generate access to services. We're testing a few of the things with the other service providers. So if you think about dog walking and dog sitting, a lot of these services are obviously a very high frequency consumer need, and the ability for us to be able to, again, inform the service providers, whether it's dog walkers, dog sitters, with a full picture of what the pet's background, health history, will enable them to watch out for things better, to be able to help to inform how they look at the pet, how they treat the pet. And so figuring out for us the way to connect from the data perspective and insight perspective, the multitude of the service providers that are touching that pet's life is becoming a very important part of what we're trying to crack and figure out how to do.
Okay. And we just did a lot of the big picture, but because this is the IoT podcast, I have to ask, where does connectivity and connected devices play into all this? We've obviously talked about Whistle, and, there's a huge market of connected home dog toys and cameras and cat toys and cameras. So where are other places where connected devices will help you in this?
So we obviously start with the light devices because of their direct link to health, but we're not stopping there. One of the other partnerships that we are currently running in China is with the smart feeder devices, because if you think about the further up development of connectivity, the area of feeding is probably another area where data can really inform a much better, much more precise aspects of pet ownership. And so what we've seen in some of the emerging markets like China that are really moving fast on the innovation front is the area of smart feeding is an area where there's a lot of consumer pull. And so being able to inject the data and the insight about the pet's needs dynamically into the way the pet is felt, both in terms of frequency and quantity, is another area which is today, this is the part of the IoT world that's not just about tomorrow, but it's already about today. And we're very happy to start piloting some of these partnership opportunities in China.
How are you guys going to make money on this? What are kind of the business models associated with Kinship?
Part of that is really about identifying the things that we want to bring inside, longer term. So obviously, Whistle and Wisdom are today, businesses we own 100%. We have big plans for them, businesses that are growing very well. So, we know that there will be the core of what the Kinship will create longer term in this kind of digital service-led area will be a very vibrant, profitable, long-term sustainable business. So on top of it, what we believe is that, what will make the core of our business successful is a very strong partnership agenda that will make us an essential partner for as many successful players in this industry as possible. So it's not just about us being successful by ourselves, but also us being successful because we will be at the fulcrum of the bigger coalition for the industry's future. So kind of that's what we are working towards.
Leonid, thank you so much for coming on the show this week. I really appreciate it, and I will look forward to all the cool services that will make it easier for me to own my dog.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
That's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, if you'd like more IoT news, sign up for my newsletter at stacyoniot.com. We'll see you next week.